What is up, Vortex Nation? Before we jump into today's podcast, got some really cool stuff going on that I want to make sure you're aware of. First off, we just launched our new Defender XL Micro Red Dot. This thing is purpose-built for pistols and competition. It is super sweet, and it's going to put you on the podium. So definitely check out a Defender XL. You can check it out at vortexoptics.com or your local retailer. Man, they are just ideal for that application. We're super pumped about them, and I think you're going to be super pumped about them too. Secondly, we got a Father's Day promo coming up now until June 15. I'm checking my notes that I got here. Now until June 15, get yourself or your dad some Vortex socks. We got 40% off Vortex socks. I'm wearing a set right now. Man, they are fantastic. I wear them nearly every day at work, and I wear them in the field too, and I just really enjoy those things. So they are a high-quality sock. Here's one. Here's one that's really cool, and I'm going to drive you back potentially to some content that we have on the Vortex Nation YouTube channel. We just launched a really cool first-time deer hunter-themed video, and man, it turned out really well. The hunt turned out really well. In conjunction with that, or coupled with that, we're doing a Learn to Hunt with Team Vortex promotion. So if you're the winner, if you submit all your information and you win, you're going to get a Vortex Optics gear package complete with Savage Rifle. You're going to get a slot in a Vortex Edge Hunter Marksmanship course. That's really cool. And you're going to get a mentor deer hunt with Brock Rosencrantz from the National Deer Association and Doug Duran, founder of the Sharing the Land Initiative, on Doug's iconic farm in good old Wisconsin. So to enter that, just go to join.vtxnation.com. All the information is there. Good luck with that. I know we've got some folks that listen to the podcast that maybe they're on the shooting side of things, and they're finding that maybe I'm interested in going hunting. Man, this is a great opportunity to try and start your hunting journey there. Last but not least, the piece de resistance. We've got the comment of the week. Now, the winner, or the comment that we select, they're going to get themselves one of these super sweet Vortex Nation podcast hoodies. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm wearing it right now. This week's comment comes from Brandon Tanis 388. He says, "Yes, another lead balloon!" Exclamation point. The more obscure the cartridge, the more excited I am to watch. I cannot believe that I'm publicly validating Ryan Muckenhern's beloved lead balloons that he likes to do. I'm just kidding. I love those things, and we love talking about cartridges around here. So, Brandon, thank you so much for commenting. Thanks for watching. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We can't thank you enough. I'm being redundant there, but, man, we sure appreciate it around here. And I guess without further ado, let's start the show.
It's not the best elk cartridge. It's also not the best coyote cartridge. It's not the best cartridge for, your ELR shooting or your PRS match. What it is really good at, though, is being extraordinarily versatile.
Yes.
In that it can do all of those things.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to Cartridge Talks Fully Loaded. This is 308, the most versatile cartridge ever. Are people strangling us through their podcast playing devices right now, Ryan?
I am glad that there's a literal and proverbial wall between us and some folks, because pots, pans, old tires would be thrown at us.
If this was a live show, we would need protective glass.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We would need bulletproof glass.
Yeah.
And then they'd still probably try to shoot at us. Possibly not with a 308.
I think, no doubt, probably not. You and I got a little bit of 308 shade just earlier today.
So that's what I was going to say.
Just earlier today, we had a young man that Mark and I know very well. The numerical sequence 308 was mentioned in the same sentence, and immediately, when are you going to start using the good cartridges, he says.
Like, he was no doubt like dumbfounded that we brought the cartridge up in the conversation that we were having, which the conversation was. And everybody knows I love my beloved 300 Wisdom cartridge. I've been getting one kind of set up for a bear hunt last minute like I like to do, leaving this week, making last minute adjustments for no apparent reason other than to
you may have swapped a stock today.
After zeroing my gun yesterday.
Like to keep it interesting.
What is wrong with me? I do it to myself.
You know what though, Mark? You do.
You kind of convinced me this time though.
I was hoping that it was. I think it made a difference because it did change the inherent shootability of the rifle by a considerable margin.
It did.
Also, that I know. Okay, so this is a Tikka, and you know how I feel about Tikkas. I hear a lot of people dogpile on their stocks, and not that you have, but a lot of people are like, oh, crappy plastic stock. One of the best synthetic stock designs on a factory rifle out there, and I like them. I don't even know that they necessarily warrant change because you don't save a ton of weight. They're sub 30 ounces. You can certainly get lighter stocks. You get like an AG Composites, or you get a Stockies. You're in 21, 23 ounce range.
This was a Manners EH1 that I put on it.
Yeah. I was hoping that also this would, aside from changing that kind of recoil impulse or kind of felt recoil characteristic, it would give you a little more confidence and provide you some utility, because those Tikka stocks are small. Like, they're dimensionally thin, a little harder to drive. And that gun sucks to shoot. Like, point blank, your A-bolt is worse, but this one isn't that far off.
Well, and so that's partially what was driving the conversation, because I was like, I still stand by this.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody needs a 300 Win Mag, like a good shooting, well set up, accurate 300 Win Mag, preferably 300 Wisdom.
Yep, it says Win and Mag.
It's the modern gentleman's 30-06, as we've said before, Ryan. But I shot it some yesterday. I shot it some today. The new stock made the recoil impulse better. It's still not pleasant. It's not fun. So I was like, I still want this gun. I need this gun for certain things, for a lot of things actually, but for also a lot of things, I plan on shooting 6.5 Creeds and
now recently convert.
Possibly.
I
don't have one. I don't have one yet, so I don't want to be disingenuous.
Off camera, Mark's like, should I get a 308? This has happened a couple times. There's been talk about barrel lengths. 20, 18, 22. Mark is on board.
Well, it makes a lot of sense. So anyway, what was driving why we were changing some stuff out, and I think we remedied the issue that I was speaking, because the gun shoots famously.
Yeah.
But then we were getting some inconsistency, like it would print a group, and then so. I think, actually, hopefully, fingers crossed, I think I might have had a couple screws loose.
That'll do it.
In the rifle system.
That'll do it.
So, anyway, but I was going to bring up the same thing you said about just the utter... I'm not going to say that it was discussed when we mentioned 308, but it was just kind of like quizzically, like, why would you do that when we have so many better cartridges
The word better cartridges, better calibers was thrown out there, which I thought was curious.
Now, I will also be the first to say I love 6.5 Creeds.
Great cartridge.
I do the 6.8 Western. I think is a very well designed cartridge. 7 PRC is coming into vogue right now. The 308 doesn't have some of those more modern characteristics to it,
like a short, optimally designed case. Like, hold on a minute. Let me back up a little bit. I got to think about the etymology of the 308. Okay, it's late 40s, early 50s. Cartridge in vogue at that time was 30-06. It was military cartridges. It was great round. Can we emulate the performance, but in a smaller, more portable, sleeker package that we can put more rounds in the magazine with less weight? Oh yeah, 308. Yeah, no, I remember now. So wait a minute. It doesn't have those modern amenities like a very well balanced powder charge. Like a capacity relative to its bullet weight to achieve a particular velocity band.
You're right.
Oh, it doesn't have, you know what it is? It doesn't have that fancy 32.5 to 35 degree shoulder. Is that what it is?
I think so.
Okay,
yeah.
Got it.
That's what it is.
You can get them with red tips.
It's all angles these days. Look, it used to be ball bearings.
You can get them with fancy colored tips. reds, blues, whites, greens.
I am converting. Well, and for the sake of this, I'll probably do it. For the sake of this discussion, we're talking about the most versatile cartridge ever.
Yeah.
Right? And that doesn't mean the best long-range cartridge.
Correct.
It doesn't mean the best elk cartridge.
No, there's a gentleman who wrote in. He was very upset that we would even talk about the 308 Winchester in any kind of capacity.
What wasn't he upset that it was a
2 reasons.
Okay, go.
One, it was a military cartridge.
Right.
Which I found interesting. Very upset about that. He did, however, speak very highly of the 30-06. Secondly, because he has seen more general elk wounded with the 308 Winchester than any other cartridge, which I also found interesting because he favored the 30-06 as an elk cartridge, which is
well, maybe he hunted with a lot of guys that ran 308s or something.
That could be. I'd be curious, how many elk did you see wounded? When we make the statement, more wounded elk than any other cartridge was a 308. How many was that? Was it 2? Was it 22? Secondly, where were those elk hit and with what bullet?
Sure.
Because I'll tell you what I see a lot. I see a lot of guys kill elk with bows and arrows.
Yes.
Dead. Stone them. I think you've done that. Whitetails, elks.
I'm not an elk killer with the bow.
Well, be that as it may.
Try as I might.
We know elk killers with bows.
Elk have a force field around them with my arrows, and my arrows will. And granted, a lot of my elk time has been spent in Western Washington, where you're trying to thread the needle a little bit and get narrow shooting lanes and
big, thick, timbery country.
Yeah. And couple trees have reached out and grabbed my arrows over the years.
Dang, things came out of nowhere.
I know.
But that's always been interesting to me, and I've heard that about like every cartridge, in which is actually kind of, if we back up in time a few years and we talk about, well, why do you guys talk about cartridges on this podcast and bullets on this podcast so much? Well, partly because it goes kind of hand in hand with what we do here. We do a lot of shooting, and our customers, like us, like a lot of different rifles and projectiles, and it's fun to explore these things.
We talk about these things because we're interested in them.
Yeah.
And when we're not here podcasting about these things, I'm downstairs talking to you about these things.
Yeah.
Like we spend a lot of time on this.
Yeah.
I think I love it because there never is a concrete answer.
No, definitely not. But part of the reason that I think we've kind of gotten into this cartridge talk thing is because we have heard that every bullet from every manufacturer is either horrible or incredible.
Right.
Every cartridge is either horrible or incredible. And it's really fun to kind of like dig into the nuances of them a little bit and unpack that a little bit. But like I said, that gentleman, he was not thrilled that we had talked about the 308 in that capacity. And I think to what Mark had said earlier, it's not the best elk cartridge. It's also not the best coyote cartridge. It's not the best cartridge for, your ELR shooting, or your PRS match. And it's not the best cartridge for 3-gun. So what it is really good at, though, as you had alluded to, my dear friend Mark, is being extraordinarily versatile.
Yes.
In that it can do all of those things. You'll have to work with it a little bit, and you have to be perhaps a bit more particular or judicious with your ammo selection or your loading practices. But this is one that really can do it all. If you were going to have one cartridge, one set of reloading dies, one to rule them all, this really is it.
It would be it for me. I was thinking, we've got, just what we're doing with that 300 Wisdom today. You could grab yourself a Tika, throw it in a stock like that EH1 that I just put it in, which also, like, I'd never done that before. Of course, I didn't do it. Ruben and Tucker helped me with it. The speed and simplicity. It appeared that if you know righty tighty, lefty loosey, you can change that out.
Yeah, and you wouldn't even need to necessarily, but yeah, 2 bolts.
Well, okay, so where I'm going with that though, like you're saying one gun. Oh, I want one gun, and I want to do some PRS type stuff, but I also want this to be a moderate recoiling, highly effective big game rifle that I can load up and down for whatever the heck I want to shoot at, whatever the situation is, to a reasonable distance.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not extreme long range,
Yeah.
but well, I guess about as long as range as you need to shoot if you're doing target style stuff, which you just switch the ammo and go do that with that same setup.
Yep.
It just makes a lot of sense. You look at the ammo that we have on the table here, Ryan. This is not even half of the available offerings from 6 manufacturers.
Well, 7 times 6.
I think there's like 43 or 44 boxes here. I counted them earlier.
Okay. Yeah, so what did you tally, 102, 104?
Going off memory, that sounds about right.
So we'll just make it an easy
If you
number.
want the official number that we tallied the other day, you can watch the episode of Cartridge Talks.
And that was just the big 5.
Right.
Remington, Federal, Barnes, Hornady, Winchester,
6.
and Nosler. Big 6.
The big 6.
And there are certainly more ammunition companies.
Countless.
Yeah.
And good options.
Oh yeah.
They're good ammunition companies.
Absolutely.
They're left out of this. We just can do it all.
Yeah.
But
correct.
there's some really good stuff out there. Whatever you want to do, you can do with that cartridge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And in the other discussion that we have that this podcast is following, we exemplify kind of a multi-gun scenario. So if you're going to shoot, say, competitive 3-gun, specifically you're going to look at it from the perspective of the heavy metal class shooter. You are shooting a 308 Winchester from a tactical LE or military application. Some famous rifles like the SR-25, the M110, the SCAR 17, SCAR 20, the M240, the Mark 48, the M60. These are all military platforms. Massive adoption. The M60 is now gone away. Shame. It's good machine gun. 308 Winchester, of course. So it covers those bases famously. Oh, sniping applications too. M21, M24, M25, M40. All 308 Winchester. We looked at some hunting rifles in various application, from that, northeast big woods to Midwest, wood egg mix. If you're shooting a Remington 760 or a 7600, a 740, 742, 7400, a BAR, a BLR. What else do we have? I think that covered that.
I mean, the point being, very budget-friendly rifles.
Mm-hmm.
All the way up to rifle. You get yourself a sweet little $10,000 custom bolt gun, PRS type gun in 308. And I suppose, you could do that with other cartridges, but not to the extent though.
No,
not to the extent.
In the same, we actually used the same ammo for the test, which is my favorite part. Mark and I were shooting targets at 10 yards as fast as we could pull the trigger on an American Defense Manufacturing AR-10. And then in a different rifle using the same ammunition, we were shooting 1,000-yard steel plates. Different rifle,
right?
Of course, but 1,000-yard steel plates. 308 Winchester, same factory loading, and so we barely even we didn't scratch the surface of the versatility of the load options that are out there, and I suppose that goes to illustrate the versatility of this cartridge, just how many different ways you can have it, from 110 grains to 220, from bullet constructions that are varmint type, dang near frangible, to, solid coppers, to heavyweight, high BC, long range projectiles, and everything in between. there is a factory offering in 308 Winchester that checks any requirement box that you have within reason. You know, I wouldn't tell you that this is a good pachyderm cartridge, although WMD Bell killed an awful lot of elephants with 6.5 by 54 Mannlicher Schoenauer, 7 by 57 Mauser, and 303 British. A lot of elephants.
Paul Neese was telling me, I can't remember. I need to ask him because I'd probably want to read the book, and I'm not trying to act like I read a lot of books. Apparently, I like brown bear books because I'm in process of reading. I think it's The Last of the Great Brown Bear Men. It's a cool book.
Are you kind of thinking about hunting brown bears?
Oh, I don't have the coin for that.
Oh, okay.
But Paul Neeson, I've brought this book up before. I can't remember the guy, but he was shooting a lot of brown bears with it was like a 220 Swift or something.
Sure.
And I think he might have been like dome pieces.
Yep.
Most of them.
Yep.
Which, still, that's a big thick skull. We did that other cartridge talks with those, mock bear skulls with the 9 versus 10. A little plug for that. That was a good one. That was a fun one. I guess my point being, sometimes, and I wonder this myself because I get stuck in bigger is better.
Sure.
Sometimes.
Yep.
But then I wonder though, maybe some of these more pleasant, mildly recoiling cartridges are incredibly sufficient for what I want to do with them.
Sure. I think the big thing, I guess in the context of hunting, because target shooting, right? You can find a competitive advantage using a given cartridge or bullet style, like PRS, for instance. Wouldn't be awesome to shoot a lot of 308 in PRS if you're shooting a tactical class. I think it's a prerequisite. Scott Parks, we've had on the podcast before, lived in 308 for a decade and knows the cartridge in and out intimately. Ian Clem, F-class, multiple national, international championships. Ian is one of the best shooters on the planet. Lives in 308 Winchester land. Knows everything about the cartridge inside and out. And has competed with it on a global level. Same thing with Scotty. So there are certain instances in which that's the cartridge you have to use, but there may be an opportunity for a better play. So Mikey Tassel, for instance, shoots a lot of PRS. Tucker shoots PRS. I think, Nick and Ruben, Nick especially, I think Ruben's dabbled in a little bit. They're shooting light sixes, like 6-dasher.
6-arc, I think.
Rube's got a pretty cool bolt 6-arc. And there's a competitive advantage there. You super small format cartridge, super efficient, minuscule powder charges, barely ticking over 30 grains of powder, high BC projectile, really squeezing out all the efficiency that you can. And one of the biggest things is no recoil.
I was just saying, then they're putting them in fairly heavy
15,
rifle rigs.
18, 20-pound guns.
No
recoil.
They'll put those things on a sandbag. You could stand back and pull the trigger and the darn thing isn't going to move.
Correct, yeah.
It's really astounding.
So, I'm not saying it's the best PRS cartridge either, but you can do it. And you may have to, depending on the class that you shoot.
Well, Scott, I remember, this is back when we were doing, some of the OG podcasts. And I think it was some of the long-range shooting, 1001, 1002 series. And he was talking about how you want to get back to honing your rifle fundamentals, and he goes back to 308 to do that to keep him honest.
Yep. You get a little complacent when you don't have to worry about recoil, and if you're shooting a super high BC bullet, real slippery thing, and you don't have to worry about wind so much. It's a cartridge that, like you said, it really highlights fundamentals.
And I guess, to expand on that a little bit, a person might say, exactly, that's why I don't want to shoot it for PRS or something like that. But I guess I would argue, but also, once again, it lies in a sweet spot of it has recoil. You're gonna hone your fundamentals. It's gonna keep you honest, but it's not so much that it's terrible at the same time.
No. I'm gonna plant my flag in the hill of. For hunting, this is fine cartridge. It's a fine cartridge. It's hard to beat. It really is. Like really like beat honestly. And you can define beat a lot of different ways. Like your 300 Wisdom, for instance, you're shooting a 190 at 29 and change. I can't get a 308 Winchester to do that.
Right.
You're also contending with double the recoil. And when we get down to it and we start talking about, from the hunter's perspective, why do you need that 190 at 2960, 2950? What is it affording you?
That's kind of where I was going before. Sometimes, I don't know.
I think if you're looking at the fringe of your operational envelope of like distance, you're starting to talk about 500, 600, 700 yards. Now it's useful. Like now all that recoil, all those teeth that cartridge and that rifle has, now it's useful. If you're not a person who operates in that airspace, if you're not at that altitude, like you don't need that airframe. You'll probably hate it because it's going to kick the tar out of you, and it's costly to shoot. And that's kind of where I am. That's where I live with all of that. And I have big guns. I have a 300 Weatherby. I've got a 300 Win Mag. Got a 280 Ackley, which isn't really a Magnum cartridge, but plays like one.
Mm-hmm.
And those are designed for living in that airspace. Not that I do very often, but if I had to, that's what I have those for. But for everything else, wow, I'll tell you, 308 solves a lot of problems. And again, the whole premise behind this is the versatility. If you had to have just one, and you did want to participate in multi-gun competition, F-class, PRS, if you had a law enforcement or military application or role that you needed filled with a single cartridge, if you had a big game, and we'll classify that as, what do we say, cervids on down, or do we lump in the big bears?
So I bring up this, if you've ever listened to, we've done multiple podcasts that cater to the 308 in some way or another. But
Yeah.
a good buddy of mine lives up in AK. I think he and his wife are on Kodiak, and he sends me a picture of just this giant brown bear. I'm like, dude, that's a really big bear. Legit 10-foot bear. I think it might have been 10 and change.
Oof.
And
that's incomprehensibly huge.
And I remember him saying, he goes, well, don't tell anybody, but she killed it with a 308.
Yeah.
Because I think, you don't want to I think people will judge.
Sure.
That's not sufficient. I don't know.
Yeah.
You can push a big bullet with it.
Yep.
You can push the right big bullet with it. And if you keep your distances reasonable, which most people aren't taking exceptionally long shots at brown bears with 308, it's not my first choice.
Sure.
That's where the 300s end up, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's an insurance policy.
100%. Yes.
But, whatever. Anecdote of one.
There's a lot of those
Certainly
those anecdotes out there.
And that's kind of where I go back to. I'm like, I need a little bit more for this and that. And I'm like, I don't know, kind of worked on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or not kind of, it did.
Yeah. And I think, and we've talked about this before, like, I've toned down quite a bit in my age with new cartridges. For a while there, it was a bit obscene. My reloading shelf of dies that have been used once, twice, maybe 3 times, that I don't own the rifle or don't own the chambering any longer. There's more than less, I guess, right? And now I've had some time and some experience in the field and a number of really great hunts under my belts and some critters in my freezer where I've looked at the distances in which I'm usually comfortable engaging game. And I shouldn't say usually comfortable. Like, actually, if I'm being honest, it's the distances at which I encounter them. Because I suppose I do a fair amount of shooting, and I guess I'm comfortable shooting perhaps further.
I've seen you shoot much further very consistently, every single time.
I guess I'm uncomfortable with knowing what I know about bullets and like how they function and where those functional limits exist.
Yeah.
And knowing that, like, a lot can happen between 1 and 700 yards. A lot can happen. A gust of wind you don't even know exists can move you from dead right there to call your buddies, bring your headlamps. We're looking for something that's got a perforated abdomen now.
Well, and that's where folks, and I'd say warranted, would argue exactly. That's why you shoot one of these more modern, high BC, super slippery, more wind. They pass through the air more efficiently. They're less prone to wind drift. So they give you just kind of like the old 300 Win.
Yeah,
gives you an insurance policy with power, if you will. That gives you an insurance policy with maybe not the most correct wind call.
Sure, maybe. But is that the more commonly encountered scenario for you? Like, are you running into the shot distances? Because if you look at, like, take 6.5 Creedmoor on the bottom end, put 308 in the middle, and put 300 Win Mag on the top. Like, not many people are going to argue about the efficacy of a 300 Win Mag as a big game rifle. Like, it's a good, if you're going to have one big game rifle and you're like, just one, I don't even know what I'm going to hunt future state. Maybe I hunt whitetails now. I have aspirations and dreams of mule deer, pronghorn, elk, moose, etc. 300 Win Mag would be a fine choice. So on the top end of that, so there's your three, your full tank, half tank, and empty on your gauge. And you institute a 10-mile-an-hour full value crosswind, and you look at the differences between them with appropriate hunting bullets. I don't want you to say, like, well, if I put this super high BC bullet that works really well at extended distances but doesn't work super great at 300 yards or 200 yards.
But okay, let me just throw three out there that come off the top of my head. An ELDX.
Sure.
An AccuBond LR. A Barnes LRX.
Run those numbers at, let's say, 400 and in. Is there such a disparity that the 308 is just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna hit it in the hindquarters?
No, not at 400.
Not at all.
No.
And then,
like you were saying earlier, it's kind of you get beyond that threshold,
yep.
Which again, I'm not putting a limit on how far somebody should take a shot, because
sure.
That depends on your setup and your ability and all those things, right? Yep. But I think what you were getting at earlier, just by the way things generally end out working, oftentimes you are 400 and in.
Yeah, oh, absolutely I am. Yeah.
So,
yeah. And
again, hat tip to the
yeah. And that's
you're not really giving up anything.
That's my personal point is like why I choose this as a hunting round is because the distances at which I routinely operate warrant or make a cartridge like this very warranted, right? And then the other attributes of it, it's mild mannerisms, its availability. I'm not going to use the word inherent accuracy, but it is a very easy cartridge to load for as a hand loader. And because of the expansive amount of ammunition that's available to the shooting public in really high quality stuff, you can get a really sweet load for your gun.
It's a NATO cartridge.
That's true.
That's like an insurance policy for availability.
Oh, yeah. A darling cartridge. But not the best elk round, not the best moose round, certainly not the best brown bear round. When you said brown bears and you said 300 Win Mag, I was like, doesn't that seem light?
Well, and I think a lot of people might consider that light.
Yeah. So I'm thinking like 338 Win Mag, 340 Weatherby, 375 H&H, 375 Ruger. Only because I don't know. Like, I mean, you shoot anything in the brain case, it's probably not going to do well.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, several of my buddies have killed brown bears, and they've done it with 300s or 300 Wisdoms. Sure. You know, like
right bullet, right place.
180s with a good bullet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe they were shooting 200s. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think so though.
On the cartridge itself, I hear it get compared a lot to 30-06 and 6.5 Creedmoor, which makes sense.
That's when I think of it.
Yep.
It's kind of sandwiched between the two.
So something that when we were talking about this is a couple weeks or month or two ago now, we were talking about Well, why the 308? Why not a 30-06? And this is a valid question. I mean, I've also got several 30-06s and find that a very endearing cartridge. Sorts out everything I need it to do.
Well, I think we talked about this in the video too, or maybe it was before, during, or after. Like I said, we're always having these discussions. You know, you have several 30-06s, 308.
Mm-hmm.
I have 30-06s, 300s, and 6.5 Creeds.
Sure.
The hole in my arsenal is the 308
yeah.
that we always end up talking about.
And I don't know that it's a hole, because you're doing something, I'm going to use air quotes, better with the 30-06. You're picking up 100 feet per second. And you remember that conversation where you're like, no.
I mean, up to 200, right?
Yeah, maybe with an eclectic loading. Or, no, I'm not going to say eclectic, but with extraordinarily specific loadings. Yeah, you might pick up 200 feet per second. I toss out the 130 grain Barnes TTSX loadings. That's 3148 is my average out of my Kimber. That's fast.
How fast is a 270 pushing a 130?
3060.
I think that's an interesting thing to bring up.
Hmm?
People love shooting 130s out of their 270s. They'll shoot them at anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody will say sectional density.
Frontal diameter.
Copper bullet. Sectional density, somewhat moot point. I've only recovered one Barnes bullet out of a critter. I dug one out of a dirt bank one time behind a coyote. But out of a critter, one.
Most of the bullets I've found have been monolithic bullets, interestingly enough.
That is unusual.
Blacktail close range, Alaska, whitetail here at home, hard quartering shot, about 100 yards. Entered mid ribs, kept it with it like I think it was either inside the shoulder blade or just inside the hide.
Went through it.
Axis steer at like 130, 150, another quartering shot. That's out, but those were all. No, the blacktail was a 270, but the others were all 300 short mag, 165 grainers, I believe, GMXs, most of the time.
Yeah, that 130 TTSX, which has a terrible BC by standards. It's a .350. Yeah, which drives some folks just bananas.
It bothers me.
It does, but I think that's unfounded. And so yeah, a 350 BC, which is low, and an SD, if you're a subscriber to sectional density, is a meaningful thing, and it's not a meaningful thing, but there's ways that we can defeat that part of the equation, like with bullet construction, for instance. Mm-hmm. If the sectional density component is what you believe is the driving force behind penetration. So the singular bullet that I recovered was a mule deer, northwestern South Dakota. It was 148 yards, bedded frontal. I'm going to say 38 inches of penetration. It went through 7 vertebrae. I've recovered the bullet in the spinal column, like where the spine runs through the vertebrae, the little hole that's in there.
Did you just hit him like high in the chest here, and it just ran straight back down
so
the spine?
he was bedded, slight downhill, mostly frontal, slight quarter off. So I would have hit him like I guess we'll say his clavicle, and it raked. I want to say 2 ribs on its entrance. It traveled on that path. It is kind of, the deer is downward.
Oh, so the vertebrae it countered were on the kind of towards the back end.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
So it entered would have been all thoracic vertebrae and was effectively recovered at about the hips, like one of the last vertebrae before you get into when they're all fused and they make up the vertebrae behind that, what would be the tailbone, I suppose. And it, like right at the midline of the hips was where that bullet was.
Well, I can't imagine he went anywhere.
He did not. There was a slight push up and then a roll down a hill all the way to the bottom, which was very inconvenient. And then for some reason we thought,
I can't believe.
For some reason we thought, you know what we should do? We should drag him up the hill and then work on him. was dark. We were cold and tired.
I can't get a little body heat warmth worked up before.
Oh, we did. That was a sweaty drag. In any event, this goes to show that with the right bullet construction being key, penetrative capability is incredible. Like, it was 36 to 38 inches. I mean, it was like the majority of the deer. You had about that much more before you'd have popped out the other side. And, so that same crappy bullet from like a numbers perspective, because of its launch velocity, outpaces my 6.5 Creedmoor, shooting a higher BC, higher SD bullet to like 400 yards.
Right. Which is kind of like that operating window.
Yeah.
That certainly you can encounter game beyond that.
I have those numbers. I'm going to just take a peek.
God, you love those numbers.
I love them. Well, you hated, you know what, though? You hated the BC. You hate that low BC. And that's fun.
Like, you just get, I've grown accustomed to a certain standard of BC living these last few years.
Sure.
And that one isn't even close to what a lot of these more slippery projectiles boast.
Yeah, it's not even close. For some reason, why didn't I institute wind? There we are. Okay. So 10 mile an hour full value wind. 500 yards, I'm going to round up, 2.6 mils of elevation correction at 500 yards. 1.4 mils of windage correction.
Okay.
For contrast, 6.5 Creedmoor, 120 grain Barnes bullets, slightly, just 10 grains less. Good analog, though. Good way to compare. 2.8 mils of vertical correction. We have a 0.2 mil reduction in windage correction requirement, which isn't insignificant. 0.2 of a mil at 500 yards is nothing to scoff at. But this is, why you do your best to do your homework up front. But if we're looking at it in terms of drop, which is the thing that we're going to compensate
What's the launch velocity of that 120 6.5
2,900.
And you're
131. We'll call it 3150. Yeah, and that's a factory loading, Mark.
Right. Nothing.
Yeah. No, standard loading. I buy them off of Barnes' website or Midway USA once or twice a year. So I had a cart. And so with that being said, so like earlier today, somebody's like, there are a lot of other better cartridges like 6.5 Creedmoor. And I didn't ask. I didn't say, well, why don't you qualify that statement for me? Like, why is it better? I think in some context, it absolutely is a better cartridge. Not 20 minutes before that, I was shooting one of my 6.5 Creedmoors. And I think here's a reason why a 6.5 Creedmoor is a better cartridge. Factory Hornady 140 grain ELDMs. We shoot as a group tens of thousands of rounds of that stuff a year, out to 1,200 yards. Like, that is a good load. Very easy to shoot, very easy to control. When we teach a reloading class down at Edge, that's the cartridge we load, that's the bullet we load. When we do the long range, either intro or the highly advanced number 3 class, that's the cartridge we use or see most frequently. And yeah, in that context, it's a better cartridge. But for a hunting cartridge, like if we're talking about hunting, you're talking about black bears, I'm talking about mule deer, whitetail, pronghorn, all that. Why would you pick the cartridge that has more drop to target and less mass on target in that particular chambering, the 120 TTSX? That would actually be the worst or the worst of the two cartridges, I think, right? I'd rather have that 308. I think that's a better play. And then with 30-06 being that next step up, nominally, the factory loadings offer about 100 foot per second advantage, which is not insignificant. I think it becomes especially significant once you start getting over that 165 weight class, because now you're just running out of case capacity, and the OT6 is going to handle that way better. And, back to barns for a second. I usually shoot light for caliber in barns and everything that I shoot. So like 120s out of the 6.5 Creedmoor, 127s out of the 6.5 Creedmoor, where a lot of those loadings are 140s or even heavier. Just because I do have a BC discrepancy, I need to make up for it somewhere, and I'm going to make up for it with velocity. I picked the 308, larger surface area on the back of the bullet. Gas pushes on it. I get a higher velocity. That's why a bullet of effectively comparable weight launches hundreds of feet per second faster, right? In the .6, I shoot the 175 LRXs. I shoot like a heavy bullet, heavy long bullet.
Right.
And only because they shoot so good out of that gun. And, you know, very honest launch velocity. They're in the mid 27s. So like that is nothing to contend with. Like that's a really, 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 really deadly bullet cartridge combination. So yeah, I mean, the 30-06 offers you that velocity advantage across the board on everything. But again, we're speaking to versatility, and you can't really get AR-10 chambered in 30-06. Actually, you can, but it's just.
And 30-06, you're getting that velocity advantage with a little bit bigger bullet too.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're getting two things there.
Yes.
Potentially.
Yep. So when I loaded the 130s out of the 30-06, yeah, I get those well north of 3,200.
And you can load those bigger bullets in a 308,
yep.
But you're going to sacrifice velocity.
Absolutely.
So
at the trade-off of recoil, at the trade-off of cost of operations, if you're somebody who's penny pinching the breakdown of your load, you know, you've got potentially more expensive components from the cartridge case. You certainly have more powder in the case, so that adds up over time. I think that's getting a little
nitpicky.
Yeah, a little bit. But again, the premise of the conversation though is that versatility, and it's like, well, you don't shoot heavy metal 3-gun division necessarily competitively with the 30-06. I mean, you could. I've shot with a couple guys shooting Grands before, but like AR-10 pattern guns come in 308. F-class, like that tactical class that Ian shoots, that's 308. PRS, Scott's 308. Nothing is as felt to me and quick handling as my little Kimber 84M mountain ascent. All 6 pounds, 3 ounces of it in 308. And you
Deer
know,
6 pound, 3 ounce.
Yep. And
Kimber
so
mountain ascent.
That's what it is. That's the squeeze. And I can do, like I said, I can do all of those things with the same cartridge.
Well, same argument, or I'm going to say the same thing a different way here, but you got your 308 that you hunt whitetails in Wisconsin, and boy, I'm going to do a DIY float trip in Alaska where maybe we plan on sticking to the river. Mm-hmm. We're not going to get too far off the river. In fact, maybe we're not going to get off the river.
Sure.
And our shots are going to be probably a max of 200 yards.
Sure.
Bullet up with the right bullet.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to buy a new rifle, and I'm shooting moose in Alaska.
Yep. Just like that.
Just like that.
That is exactly the scenario you painted. Is why I own that rifle.
Which one?
That Kimber.
Oh.
That's exactly what you said. On something that I could, if I decide to ever hunt whitetails in the state of Wisconsin, I could use that gun when I go to Alaska. That's a joke because I don't really hunt whitetails, except with you.
But you did last year. You didn't use that gun.
No, but I used a 308.
You did use a 308.
That's right. I don't, yeah.
Killed 2 of them right dead.
Yeah.
And, to show, I guess one was, I would say, exceptionally close.
Like 22 yards.
And the other one was
385.
Yeah, so you're pushing that 4 mark.
Yep.
That's another thing, too. Who was I talking about this earlier today? Was it you? I don't think so. Anyway, I was talking about, I think people don't, we're talking about whitetail optics.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like Midwest whitetail hunters, particularly like in ag land. Okay, I'm going to preface this. A lot of times I'm rifle hunting essentially in bow stands in Wisconsin. Because I think that's the best place to kill a deer. And sometimes with the bow, those deer are, 80 yards out, or maybe it's just it's not a matter of distance, but it's the fact the trajectory of my arrow. I know I'm going to hit some overhanging brush where when I'm in there with the gun, I know I can just zip it right through that hole.
Yep.
But also, I think if people shifted their mindset to a turreted optic and got their ballistics and used the geoballistics and all the things to get their dope. I'm sidetracking here, but I think that they could not only increase their effective range, they could increase the places that they hunt and capitalize on opportunities that they wouldn't get unless they went through that process.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I think it's just a shift in mindset to go, if I sat here, I could shoot that field edge over there. I could shoot that field edge over there. I could shoot that field edge over there. If you want to hunt field edges, and I'm not saying that's the best, because oftentimes I'll argue this too. I think people in Wisconsin or in the Midwest, I think they go, I've got the rifle. I need to set up in this open space. And I'll say, well, that's not always the right call, because if you set up to be able to shoot 50 yards in the timber, that's likely a good spot where a buck is. So I'm arguing it both ways, but I've also hunted both ways. And then also the 308 would be great for both of those scenarios.
It would. And it's funny you mentioned that. I guess, so fast forward to before that hunt. This makes me sound silly because I'd been to the property that we were hunting on many times, walked it many times, knew exactly.
Jim and I doubled on Tom's there.
Hey, you guys are
the other day.
Made me so happy to see them. And then, yeah.
I was worried.
What?
I was worried you were going to be.
I wish I was there.
Missing out.
I was. I'm upset that I missed out. I was also chasing turkeys in a completely different ecosystem, though, and enjoying myself. And I saw a live mountain lion.
That's pretty cool.
That's if you asked me, if you could have walked out of there with a nice Merriam's or two nice Merriam's, or you got to see that mountain lion, what would you have picked? I think I'd have picked the mountain lion.
Oh man, I love shooting turkeys.
I do too. But that was a mountain lion.
I've still never seen a mountain lion.
He was.
I glassed up a mountain lion kill in Arizona.
That's
one time.
cool. Yeah.
But I did not see
a lion. So there I was. But anyway, back on this landscape. Foolish me, I'm like, yeah, we're deer hunting in South Central Wisconsin. What's a guy going to get? 180-yard shot from that stand? There's a terrain feature out there, which actually probably killed your turkeys next to. It would have been the pile. Were you near?
No.
Oh, really?
No.
Okay.
Not far, but we weren't on it.
Okay. That pile is 900 yards from that stand. Because
it's a poke.
I'm sitting in that stand. I'm like, yeah, this is nice shooting laying down here. It's protected from the wind. Grab the rangefinder. It's 900 yards. I'm like, I just put it away. It's okay, have that distance. That's where I'm going to be comfortable operating to with this rifle and this load.
Well, and that pile, it ain't at the end.
No, there's more to go. So it's funny in that if you were to also approach that particular property and how do you pick a rifle for that? It's the same rifle that I would take to Wyoming to chase mule deer and pronghorn. Get something fast and flat shooting with like you said, a turret, and use it, and you would not be overgunned, overscoped there. A 3-15 would be well at home, and I think you had that.
That's what I was using. Yeah.
Yeah, and you would treat that hunt like you were chasing mule deer out of a box blind.
That is we're sidetracking here, but that is what I love about setting up a good hunting rifle that you're confident in.
Yeah,
and then you put on a Viper HD 3-15 LR with the turret, or a Razor LHT 3-15 with the turret. You get your ballistics, and it's such a versatile package.
Mm-hmm.
Throw it on a 308, make it even more versatile. But you're like, you want to hunt whitetails in Wisconsin? Great. You're going out, and I guess we're talking about Western type distances in Wisconsin. But then you go out west, you go on your South Dakota mule deer hunt, whatever. It's the same gun.
Yeah.
And I do believe that there's merit in shooting the same gun a lot.
Absolutely there is. 100%.
And a 308 will allow you to do that,
yeah,
no doubt.
Absolutely.
Circling back to 308.
I'm thinking about Minnesota when I lived there. How far could I have shot? I guess down the logging roads, many, many, many hundreds of yards. You could shoot down that logging road. But in general, none of the places that I hunted with a rifle, because we were in that split situation where south of the interstate, you had to use a slug gun, a muzzleloader, a handgun. I know, and that's where all the big open country is, which is just the funniest part to me.
That is curious.
Yeah, like where I hunt now.
Well, it's probably their line of thinking, which I don't know if I would ever follow or subscribe to it. It's because it's open. We don't want to go on that far. It could go forever.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess the 12-year-old version of me understood that logic a little bit more. Fresh off of hunter safety and like thinking about how far will a 22 LR travel at a 45-degree angle. It's a long ways, But when I think about this, like what would I rather have? The shooter who, if you had a deer, if you had the opportunity between a smoothbore Remington 870, the same gun that you're chasing ducks and pheasants with a bead front sight, or maybe you had that sweet saddle mount upgrade and you had like a 1-4 or 2-7 on it, shooting Federal True Balls or Remington sluggers, maybe you appreciated 3 MOA accuracy at 100 yards with. That deer steps out at a $125. Would I rather have my neighbor with a magazine tube full of 1-ounce slugs and a 3 MOA accuracy potential, or a magazine full of 150 grain Hornady interlocks and just need to shoot it one time and, have the ability to place a bullet perfectly? And I think the answer is the latter. I'd rather have that.
Well, because the following 2 shots are likely not at a standing deer.
No, yeah, they're moving.
Depending on the scenario, the first shot might have been a moving shot as well.
Yeah. That's funny. But we digress.
I'm not going to tell anybody to do or not do either of those things, but I know which one I think is more effective.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I have toppled a moving whitetail with that shotgun as described.
That's cool.
Actually, it was a Winchester 1300, but close enough. Pump action 12 gauge bead sight. It was like 40 yards, 50 yards. Got him. I felt pretty sporty. I've also had the bad version of that scenario where the magazine tube is empty and you're checking pockets, But yeah, anyway, we got off track on that one, Mark.
Well, we did, but I mean, kind of like we opened with, and not to be redundant, but pump gun, lever gun, bolt gun, PRS gun,
medium machine gun,
medium machine gun,
AR-10,
PRS to predators.
Yeah, and everything.
Excellent hog round.
Sure. Yeah. Kind of everything.
Again, you could throw it in an AR, and you got yourself a.
You know what's funny? I'm looking at this giant stack of ammo, and again, this is a 20% representation of what's probably currently out there. If you go to like ammoseek.com and you just type in search by caliber,
right?
With all of this offering, you could probably, once you find just the right bullet for those applications that you said, like you mentioned. Okay, we'll just say we're gonna lump PRS, that we're going to use that as a what do you call that, a colloquial term?
Sure.
Yeah. We'll just call it precision long-range rifle shooting of any kind.
There you go.
Yeah. I'm going to grab 168 or 178 grain Hornady ELDMs. Like, that is immediately what I'm grabbing. We have the BTHP version of their match.
I was going to say, that's what I thought I saw there.
Yeah.
Here's the 178 ELDX.
Okay, there's my 308 grab. First thing I'm doing. If it's like big cervids, elk, mule deer, or not mule deer, but elk, caribou.
I swear I've done this before.
I glued all the box lids.
Just gotta force it.
Yeah. Yeah. If it's like big cervids, I'm probably grabbing like a 165 Barnes, 150 Barnes. And if it's everything underneath that, so mule deer, pronghorn, whitetail, hogs, I'm grabbing the 130 TTSXs. Despite having all this incredible ammunition availability, I'm picking like 3, maybe 4 bullet options.
Sure.
Yeah. And if I was gonna prairie dog, no, I'm not even gonna say that. If I was gonna coyote hunt with a 308, and I have shot coyotes with a 308, but if I was like, that's my rifle to do it, 110 Hornady V Maxes. or 125 Sierras.
In the same breath, though.
Yeah.
Tell me why not. And I guess I'm holding up the...
I don't have a good answer for that.
The 168 grain Hornady match.
I don't have a good answer. That would work fine. That 110 VMAX out of a 308 is an absolutely wild loading.
I mean, it's purpose-built for it,
yeah.
Right? Like, no doubt.
Absolutely wild loading.
If you had some of these laying around, they would certainly do the trick.
That's another cool thing.
My first coyote I ever shot was with the old 760 Game Master pump '06 with like the original Barnes X.
What?
165 grainer.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Was that in Washington?
Sure was.
I bet you felt a certain kind of way after you killed that thing.
Dude, it was probably like, I bet it was, maybe it seems like it was further than it was. I bet it was approaching 200 yards.
Yep.
He was just on like a light trot. I can't remember if I dropped to a knee or shot him offhand. But it was a great shot. Perfect shot. He actually ran. Shot him. He was quartering away. Shot him. He ran. Went over the hill, and I was like, I got over there. I was like, I think I hit him. It looked like he was hit, but it looked like he was hit, but it also didn't look like he was hit. You know, he kind of zigged and zagged, and I was like,
yeah.
And then I got up there, and I think I remember seeing, I can't remember if I saw like a little tuft of hair blow in the wind, and I was like, oh, and then I cut the blood trail, and he just ran up the hill and died. And drug him out and threw him in the back of the Scout, and
that was your first coyote, huh?
It was, yeah.
Did you skin him out?
I did.
You still got the hide?
Yeah, I do.
Do you really?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
That's that soft tan I got in the basement. I brought it back to the old fraternity.
Yeah.
People don't like to hear, like, I think people have a lot of, I don't know, I think, whatever. We were definitely an eclectic group of goofballs. But it was, mid-November, whatever, snow on the ground, brought it back to the house and skinned it out. And then realized, at the time, I didn't know how to do the paws in the head. So I just kind of had him flat skinned in the snow in the front yard.
Yeah.
And I want him to stay cold.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't know how to, or I didn't know. I was like, I probably got to take it somewhere, but it'll be okay out in the snow out front. He's cooled off. And these young co-eds are walking by in the morning. I think I was outside getting ready to do something with it. It was in the morning, Saturday morning. And they're like, oh, my God, is that a wolf? And being probably a little bit immature, I go, the neighbor dog was getting in the trash.
Oh, Mark.
Should I not have done that?
What happened?
I think they knew. I go, I'm just joking. It's a coyote. I think I'd let them know. I didn't want them to think I was an absolute psycho, for God's sakes.
No.
I just thought that was funny.
That right there, Mark, that's the 130 TTSX. It's my favorite 308 loading ever.
It doesn't have the look of the... It has all the things, not the look.
Fancy tip.
And you know how I am about appearance.
I do. I'm just glad throughout all of this. Can I call you a skeptic?
Yeah.
Afterwards,
I think I need one.
There we go. That was it. That was a whole... This took months. We got him, people.
It also took, burning several rounds out of the old Wisdom the last week to just go, I don't know if I just need to do that all the time.
No. I just want you to think of that. Light recoiling, light to carry, handy, portable, suppressed. 10 likes, Mark's finally going to buy a suppressor.
That's the problem. We talk about too many things that I need.
It's not that many things. It's one rifle, one suppressor. That's it. That's two things. And there it is. That with that load right there. That is as close to the magic bullet as you can get.
No, it's got a lot of positive attributes.
I don't like it.
All of these have a lot of positive attributes.
Oh, yeah.
Look at these darn core locks that we have down here. They're responsible for some deer death.
Quite a few. It's funny, we were talking about premium ammunition. We were doing some accuracy testing a couple weeks ago. Curiously, in 308, that was totally a coincidence. It's not because we're trying to stack the deck in favor of this particular cartridge.
But we were doing a different project, and surprise, what were all the rifles readily available in?
308, yeah. The best performing load across 7 different rifles was the least expensive.
That's happened to us a couple times.
I know, and that's my favorite part. Like very, very forgiving ammunition, consistent ammunition. It happened to be a Hornady American Whitetail, like classic soft point. It's got that lead tip. That deer is done for. Like that made me really happy to see.
Well, hopefully modern day rifle shooters have maybe at least held off with a few of their rotten tomatoes, Ryan.
Or cast iron pans.
Oof, boy.
I know. It's a cartridge that gets unnecessarily poo-pooed. And I think it really is unfounded. It really is unfounded. With a factory offering, you can almost assuredly emulate, if not beat, the performance of your most darling cartridge in reasonable hunting distances, in reasonable comparisons. I'm not going to say that this thing's going to hold a candle to a 300 short mag or 7 PRC or a 28 NAS or anything like that. It's not supposed to. That's not the point.
Well, here's the deal. Rifles are fun.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Optics are fun. Shooting is fun. Hunting is fun. Hunting a variety of things is fun. And there are certainly rifles and cartridges catered specifically to nearly each one of those things that we could do.
Yeah.
Whether it's competitive shooting, a recreational, long distance, deer-sized game up to, much larger game. Like you said, pachyderms, brown bears, whatever. The 308 isn't. The 308 is great at a lot of things. It's not great at everything, but it is pretty dang good at nearly everything.
Mm-hmm.
Within reason.
It's like a 1997 Silverado.
A 97 Silverado, huh?
Classic. It's kind of square and boxy. It's only got.
I'd have gone with like a 250.
I never had one.
An F250.
I had a 97 Silverado.
When did you stop being a Chevy guy?
After that. I drove that truck all over. I got that truck with 107,000 miles on it. I got rid of it with 267,000 miles on it.
It's amazing how
that truck's still alive.
In truck world, like people just fall into their camps and they like what they like. You got Chevy guys. I've always liked Fords and Toyotas. That's what I gravitate towards. Some guys are dyed-in-the-wool. I got a buddy. He's a dyed-in-the-wool Chevy guy.
No, that was a good truck. But you know what? It wasn't great at everything.
But it got the job done, didn't it?
It took me all over hell in creation. I chased mule deer with it. I chased pronghorn with it. I chased whitetails with it. It's a good truck. Wasn't very fast. Didn't get great mileage. But you know what? You know what? I killed a lot of deer with it too. Oh.
Big front mirror then.
I'm kidding. It was bad.
I'm kidding.
That was bad. I hit a lot of deer with that truck.
Jeez, slow down.
It's not about speed. You sound like my mother. I've hit a lot of deer. I drive a lot.
Yeah, knock on wood, man. I don't know. Like,
it's a thing with me.
Yeah, you're kind of a deer magnet.
I know it.
Yeah. Well, I think the 308 is a deer magnet too.
It is.
That's a darn good cartridge.
Sucks them right into your freezer.
Boy, I hope so.
Yeah.
Did we exhaust everything we could talk about? Did we exhaust the listeners?
Probably.
Hopefully not.
Again, the entire thing is not.
Are they out there going, God, these guys are exhausted?
It's just like if you had to have one to do all the things you can do with a rifle or something with a rifled bore that's not a pistol. How about that?
Sure.
Yeah. Gosh, it's a compelling choice.
It doesn't have the fanfare that a lot of these modern
No, we're going to bring it back, though.
These days. But, yeah, maybe we can single-handedly turn the tide a little bit.
A lot of 338 Federal chatter out there. So we're going to do the same with
Again, you kind of look at it and go,
yeah.
Doesn't not make sense. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Do you agree that the 308 is emphatically the most versatile cartridge ever? Do you disagree? Let us know.
What is more versatile?
So what is? Yeah, if you disagree,
what is?
Then
more
what
versatile?
is? Maybe we need to find something out.
I know. State your case.
All right, cool. Thanks everybody for listening. State your case. as my good friend Mr. Ryan Muckenhern just said, thanks for listening. I think I said that already. We'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Bye.
See ya.
There you have it, folks. Thank you very much for listening. As usual, give this video a like if you liked it, comment something below, and give us a subscribe to the Vortex Nation podcast channel. It would mean a lot to us. Also, why don't you give us a follow over on Instagram while you're at it, at Vortex Nation Podcast. We'd love to hear from you over there, and we'll keep you updated with all kinds of cool photos and videos from our adventures that we do here. Otherwise, we will see you on the next one. Thank you again. Happy hunting and shooting, everybody. Have a good one.